Yes, sir, you're live now.
Oh, yeah. So again, hello all. So this is Professor Sudeep here. So you might have seen me in some of the sessions that you're doing. But the whole idea of this session is to sort of have a free-flowing conversation. And currently, I'm seeing not many of you have joined. So that's okay. So again, five of you have joined, or you would join subsequently. So the whole idea is that if you have any queries, any questions, concerns, suggestions about the course particularly, then you can just type your question in the chat box. Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah. Um, Bharat. Uh, so how are you doing today? Yeah, again, yeah, so people are kind of slowly joining. They're kind of dropping and then joining. But again, like I said, so the whole idea here today is to just sort of ask any questions or doubts or concerns or suggestions that you might have regarding the course. Okay. If you are not, if you didn't understand any topic, or if you want to explain in a bit more detail, etc., etc. Okay. Uh, yeah, what is the question, Bharat? Can you? Achha, I think that dropped. Uh, yeah, so let me just talk very briefly about the course motivation. I mean, why did I decide to sort of go forward with this course essentially? Okay, so so the idea is that I'm a faculty at the management school at IIT Bombay, and prior to joining IIT Bombay, I was at IIM Indore. Okay, so again, as a faculty. So there, what I feel is that let's say if you want to venture out into MBA. So, by the way, we just had interviews early this month, and then the kind of candidates and the enthusiasm that those candidates have, right? But just to sort of brush up upon some elementary statistics before they enter into some sort of a business school or management school, etc. So this was the whole motivation. So a lot of times, what happens is even I teach a course for the MBA students as a part of the curriculum, but many a times the students are not kind of understanding some of the key ideas, or how do you connect let's say a stats technique to some real world applications or real world data, etc. Okay, so the whole idea or the goal of this course was to predominantly focus on some very niche areas in, let's say, statistics plus management, and then how do you tie all these things down, so on. And hence, again, if you would have noticed that one of the thing is that if you're kind of analyzing real data sets through some case studies, okay. So let's say, hopefully, once you so down the line, if you enter a very good business school, then you'd be encountering all the case studies and so on and so forth quite a lot. All right. So how do you decipher some key elements from the case studies, or how do you analyze data which is presented in the case study? How do you present the data? Right? So all these should be kind of at the top of your mind. Right. So let's say if you enter a business school or a management school, then at that time, which is not a very good time to start looking at all these things. Okay. So if you have a brush up on all the elementary stats analysis kind of ideas and problems, then it's always a good thing to just sit through the courses and then for a better appreciation. Anyway, so yeah. So any doubts from your side? Any questions, suggestions, queries? Uh, Yeah. So again, the whole idea, like I said, is to have a entirely free flowing conversation. And then again, if you are looking for some resources, let's say, so if I ask Bharat, so since you are replying, so can you tell me your current where are you studying, etc., or are you working, or what exactly are you doing now? And similarly, of course, all the others also would want to just respond. So if somebody just wants to tell their background briefly, so that we can at least start with some conversation that what you're trying to achieve from this course, or you know something like that. Anyway, so again, one element I'd like to highlight is that apart from going through the standard material that you're witnessing in this course, it will always be a good idea to brush up on some software. Okay, so this entire idea about statistics, analytics, creating those pipelines, making decisions, answering some case studies, right? Presenting the analysis that you've done could be very easily done in these times using some software. Let's say, so be it R, be it Python, MATLAB, any software. But try to pick up some ideas and then try to work using some real data, using some software. So these days, due to the access of LLMs, especially ChatGPT, etc., etc., coding is not very difficult now. I mean, difficult in the sense what that even if you don't know anything, and even if you give some prompts to ChatGPT, it will generate some code for you. Okay, so let's say I want to create a box plot of this data set, or I want to find out whether having a histogram for my data set is better or having a bar chart is better. Okay. Or let's say if you go slightly advanced, then what kind of a distribution would fit my data the best, or it would be better, right? So all these questions these days could be answered using any LLM. But then again, the idea is that if you're doing any practical things using a software, I think that would be an added bonus. Right. So particularly this course being kind of on the shorter side, 10 hours only, we did not spend quite a lot of time on, let's say, analyzing a data end to end and then trying to answer questions in a software. Okay. Of course, so towards the end of any module, I've been giving you some case studies, some smaller case studies, some shorter practical examples, right? But down the line, let's say if you want to connect all the dots and then try to play around with some data on your end, then accessing and utilizing some software is always ideal. And again, one more point to add is that depending on what your ultimate goal is, I mean, you want to enter industry? Hopefully, yes, right? Since you'd like to venture out into MBA, and then I mean, this course is pre-MBA stats, right? So if you want to venture out into let's say in an MBA school or management school, and then down the line to an industry, then you have to actually find out that which software is used in that industry. So, of course, if it's a entirely statistical kind of a work or job, etc., then people might prefer R or even Excel. But let's say if you want to handle some really big data, a lot of features, a lot of variables, right, machine learning, deep learning, then you need access to, let's say, either Python or something else. Yeah, I think so. Bharat is saying I'm currently working. Course was good. It was great idea to have course so that student don't feel blank while entering the B school. So can you please give a brief overview of various streams of I suppose management. Uh, the last word is missing. So hopefully management. So again, yeah. So let's say looking forward, let's say hopefully you're trying to venture out into some management school or business school. Then some of the key verticals in a management school are, let's say, finance, operations, supply chain, marketing. Yeah, MBA, right? So finance, supply chain, operations, marketing, OBHR, right? Strategy, economics. So these are kind of core areas in any MBA school or something like that. Okay. So I can give you one more suggestion that apart from this course, you've done this course, you're kind of getting some idea about basic stats, etc., etc. All that is fine. But now, more from a management perspective, or more from, let's say, entering into a MBA school, right? Let's say tomorrow you go out and enter and then take admission into some MBA college or some university offering a management program. So there again, it's a good question. So what Bharat asks. So first thing is identify what sector interests you. Okay, so for example, let's say if marketing interests you, then try to bring some examples of, let's say, marketing analytics or customer satisfaction, brand preference. So all these are some routine problems, right? If you're into, let's say, more of operation, supply chain, then try to bring in some ideas about, let's say, circular supply chain, last mile supply chain, optimization. So it's a different ball game. Right. Similarly, finance has a lot of its own areas. It could be either quant finance, corporate finance, right, general finance, investment banking, derivative pricing. So depending on how quant heavy you want to pursue yourself, right, that entirely depends on that. Right. Okay. And if you're one more thing is many of you might be interested in only qualitative data and not quantitative, right? Because a lot of students that we ourselves see. at IIT Bombay, the management school at IIT Bombay, is that not all of them are into quants, right? I mean, that's entirely student driven. So if a particular student is interested in more like, let's say, survey based analysis, qualitative data analysis, right? So he or she then should not focus on, let's say, some hi-fi modeling. Some basic analytical tool or analytical procedures are more than enough, apparently. Okay, so just to give you a simple example, so you might have seen some surveys where people collect observations in terms of Likert scales or some sort of a scaling technique. So then, let's say you float the survey, you collect some observations, you collect some responses from the people, and then the idea is to translate or to sort of work upon the responses, right? So at that time, what methodology should you adopt? I mean, should you go for something like a hi-fi machine learning or time series idea? The answer is no. Okay. So very basic sort of creating some tables, charts, plots, pie charts, probably, right? And then understanding as to how do you make some decisions. I think that is more important, right? So rather than picking some path and then sort of working towards that. I'll take a reverse approach always. That what exactly is the problem in hand, and then what do you want to sort of focus on? Okay. So are you interested in focusing on, uh, let's say modeling a closed loop supply chain, or are you interested in, let's say, analyzing the elements that go inside a closed loop supply chain? So these two are different problems, if you understand, right? So on one hand, are you interested in giving an overall model, or on the other hand, are you interested in, let's say, proposing some solution, something like that? Okay. Yeah, one more good question by Bharat, that I'm more curious about consultancy. What kind of problems does the consultancy company solves? Yeah. So now, did you understand the areas I talked about? So finance, OBHR, operations, right? So any sort of a problem-solving approach in any of these areas, and any of the companies which are kind of catering to these areas, you can do some consulting, or you can start with some consultancy in those areas. So very simple example. Let's say if you take an example of marketing, right? So you want to launch a product, right? And then you want to gauge that how should we do the advertisements, and then to what segment of the crowd should we cater this product to, right? And then what you do, you collect some surveys, like I said, you do some preliminary analysis, you draw some charts, plots, you collect data more if required, right? And then at the time of when you're collating the data, right, then you approach the problem from a more decision making point of view. So let's say if I change this variable, what effect would I have on my response variable? Okay, and response in this case could be, let's say, customer satisfaction, some metric. Okay, so let's say if I increase the price of the product, how would that affect customer satisfaction? So it's kind of heavily analytical, I'll say. So a lot of consultancy firms, right, the bigger ones in all these areas, be it marketing, supply chain, finance, right, they're kind of looking for really hands-on and really practical problem solving rather than building theory and then understanding that, etc. Right? So hopefully I've answered that question of yours. Yeah, again, Bharat, so if I may ask, which area suits you? I mean, you're kind of interested in which area? And again, the same question to all of you who are listening. So, can you tell me which area you'd like to focus on? Let's say, imagine you've done the MBA, then you want to go ahead, right? So, you'd be interested in exploring which area? For example, you said consultancy, but again, consultancy firms are like middle firms or middle ground, right? So they sort of outsource information, or they sort of fill in the missing link between, let's say, an academician and the industry, more like, okay. But that industry could come from any of these sectors, right? So it could be a finance company, it could be a marketing company, or operations company, etc., or strategy company, right? So which area suits you? And again, remember one thing that, again, like I said, yeah. So again, just going back to my previous comment, that picking up on some software, okay, which is the first key element. The other key element is, let's say, reading some basic case studies. Okay, so reading some very basic case studies which are pertaining to some really practical applications of some industry or some particular company, right? And we have lots of freely available case studies. So there's always this misconception that you have to actually purchase a case study, but answer is no. So you can actually Google and then find examples of very basic case studies coming from some really big firms and so on and so forth. So it could be as simple as creating a regression model, trying to analyze that, etc. Okay, yeah. So as you were saying, you're more inclined towards consultancy. So again, like I said, so even just before entering the MBA and through the MBA, throughout the MBA, and just a little after that. So if you focus on consultancy, decision making, which a consultancy firm does, right? Then you'll not sort of deviate from what your focus is. Okay, because one more problem which I find a lot of times is that students come with some decision in their mind, but later on down the line, let's say after 1 year, after 6 months, they want to change it. Okay, that's entirely fine because then before joining MBA, you don't have a clue, right? But again, let's say at least in the initial 6 months, you try to build up something. Otherwise, you'd like to, I mean, you jumping here. That should not happen. Okay. So in the initial, let's say semester long, you'll have lots of courses. Okay, and then you'll be exposed to all sorts of areas that we talked about, right? And through all these courses, you'll have an inclination towards some area for sure, which you can pursue and collect some data pertaining to some problems, right? And yeah, so again, coming back to my point, that one more important idea is do some projects, do some small term projects with, let's say, some company. Some company meaning you need not work for them as an intern. I mean, look at their website, try to collect some data, try to see what the company is doing. Right? I mean, this is exactly what a manager should have, right? I mean, essentially, they're trying to build some managers, business leaders, as we call them, right? So, whichever company interests you. So since you said consultancy, so let's say the big four firms. And what do the big four consultancy firms they try to cater to? What kind of problems they cater to? What kind of solutions they can sort of create, right? So trying to analyze from all these different angles is kind of important, uh, right? And where exactly statistics fits in is statistics fits in to join the missing link, like it. So missing link between whatever data you have access to and whatever decision making you want to create or you want to put forward. All right, so be it regression, hypothesis testing. So in this short course also we've tried to cover a lot of problems, right? So again, be it regression, testing of hypotheses, as simple as estimation problems, interval, confidence intervals, etc., etc. But if you have some practical idea in mind that okay, so I want to test this for, let's say, this product. All right. Again, a simple example, the same marketing example. Let's say you create a scenario where you're working for a big marketing firm, and there you want to find out the customer satisfaction. Okay, and then you can create very simply. You can create, let's say, a hypothesis that let's say if you increase the price, then would it affect the average sales or not? Okay, because otherwise, if the average sales are increasing, then you can sort of pinpoint to there is some customer satisfaction. If the average sales are dipping, then there is no customer satisfaction. You would have to work on that a bit more, etc., etc. Okay, so such smaller problems you look at chunk by chunk or group by group, and then try to analyze and try to work on that. I think this would be a more useful approach. I think. Okay. So try to take smaller snippets of a problem. So if your end goal is towards creating a hypothesis testing problem, but let's say what are the building blocks in sort of achieving that? I mean, you to create a null hypothesis, alternative, then try to postulate some hypotheses, etc. Right? Then collect some data, then see what data tells you. All right. So if your sample is telling you that the average sales month on month or day on day are not that great, right? Then you'd be inclined to let's say reject the null. Reject the null means the average sales are, let's say, dipping. Okay. And null hypothesis is that the average sales are okay and customer satisfaction is there. Right. So these are some problem statements you should keep an open eye and then start working towards those problems in a systematic manner. Okay. Yeah, so I can see some of you might have joined just now. So again, I'm trying to explain the nuances of this course and a bit of motivation, bit of motivation. So motivation in what sense? Again, so since all of you have done this course, but again, let's say down the line, if you're entering an MBA school or business school, then you know what essential toolkit should you follow, or how should you try to analyze the data, how should you get to decision making, right? All these ideas. So if you have any questions at all, or suggestions also, so this is one platform that you can sort of tell me that, okay, so this part was kind of boring, okay, because this is just the first iteration of this course, right? And then obviously the next iteration I might as well, or rather, it will be a good idea if I improve upon those suggestions. So let's say bring in more examples, right? Something like that. So, okay. And let me just share my email also. I'll message the NPTEL people so that they can just paste it online in the chat box. Uh, and then again, so you can email me anytime. So this is more like an open group. You've done a NPTEL course, but if you have any queries outside of that, then you can sort of email me and try to reply if you want some resources, or if you want some information, some textbooks, etc. etc. Okay. Anyone else apart from Bharat? Anyone else who have some points, would like to interact, would like to share their thoughts on the course? Anything at all, anything. So I'm not a strict person, right? You must have seen my sessions. So if you have any feedback, any suggestions, then you're most welcome. Okay. And this would only improve the next iterations of the course, right? So it's not a negative thing that you see. So yeah, because online you have very limited courses which are kind of curated to pre-MBA statistics kind of a thing, right? I mean, even when I did some market survey, then I found out that a lot of courses are, let's say, slightly advanced, or the title itself says, let's say, statistical methods or data analytics, right? But MBA preparation is a different volume. So, like I say, I need to work more in terms of case studies, decision making, right? Taking the correct decision at the correct time. This is what is more important, right? One more small example, maybe I'll try to ask some questions. Okay, if you are kind of inclined to, let's say, answering. Okay. So I think in the course we talked about normal distribution. You might have heard about normal distribution a lot of times, etc., etc. We talked about empirical rule also. If you vaguely remember, empirical rule means how many observations can be fitted in what limits around the mean. Okay, so mu plus sigma, mu minus sigma, mu plus 2 sigma, mu minus 2 sigma, and then mu plus 3 sigma, mu minus 3 sigma. Okay. Now, can somebody tell me, just type your answer in the chat box, that what percentage of observations lie between mu minus 3 sigma and mu plus 3 sigma? How about that? Again, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid at all. Just answer something. Okay. Again, just to repeat, if you have a normal distribution, what percentage of observations lie between mu minus 3 sigma and mu plus 3 sigma? What do you think? And I think this was one point discussed in the course also, right? If I'm not wrong. Okay. And using that clue, I'll give you a very nice example. So, do you know that number? Do you know that percentage? So how about mu minus sigma and mu plus sigma? So again, if you remember, you have three levels. Okay. So you have the mean in the middle, and then you have mu minus sigma, mu plus sigma, mu minus 2 sigma, mu plus 2 sigma, and then mu minus 3 sigma, mu plus 3 sigma on either side. Okay. So can you recollect at all? All right. Anyway, so the correct answer is between mu minus 3 sigma and mu plus 3 sigma. So if you extend three standard deviations away from the mean, right, you roughly have around 99.7% of the observations. Okay. So let's say if you take any normal distribution data, income, height, exam scores, right? So these are some standard normal distribution data. So if you take any of these data sets, then the percentage of data points, or percentage of sample values, or percentage of observations falling in between 3 sigma deviation away from the mean is almost 100%, 99.7%. Okay. So taking this clue, you have very interesting application. You must have heard about Six Sigma. So a lot of industries, a lot of companies, they try to follow the Six Sigma error rule. So it's something like 3.4 errors in one billion or something like that. It's that small. Okay. And for example, Mumbai Dabawala. So Mumbai Dabawalas, they actually have a Six Sigma recognition. Okay. And I guess some airline companies also do, and so on and so forth. So the Six Sigma idea actually comes from a normal distribution idea. All right. So I told you what initially that if you take three standard deviations away from the mean, then you're capturing almost 100%. Now imagine that you extend those three sigma limits to six sigma limits. All right. So what would you have? So you'd have mu minus six sigma and mu plus six sigma. Okay. And then just think that how many observations fall inside these limits now. So it'll be so close to 100% that there is no room for any error. Okay. So the whole idea of telling this example to all of you is that even your day-to-day sort of smaller examples are kind of inclined more towards some of the elementary statistics itself. So be it normal distribution, binomial, exponential, uniform, etc. So I think in the course we've tried to build some examples on some distribution, right? Uniform, normal, etc., etc. So there I think just try to see that if you take a look around you, then what sort of examples fall as if they resemble a bell curve. Okay, so if they resemble a bell curve, then probably I'll be able to fit a normal distribution of that. Okay, if they resemble the structure of a binomial distribution, then probably I'll be able to fit a binomial, and so on and so on. Okay, so the whole idea is try to be a little more aware of what kind of data sets are you seeing around you, or what kind of scenarios are you seeing around you, because a lot of times what happens is that there must be some data lying in front of you, but then you don't know what the starting point is, right? So often starting point is always, let's say, creating some plots, getting some summary variables, mean, median, variance, percentiles, quartiles, etc. And then again, like I said, creating some charts, plots, histogram, pie chart, box plot, etc. But then the crux of the story is that the actual modeling that takes place. So are you going for estimation problems, or are you going for something like hypothesis testing problems, confidence interval problems, or regression kind of prediction problems, etc. Okay. Yeah. So any doubts at all? So having said that, so I just want to tell you that what exactly is the motivation behind studying this course. I mean, you'll see a lot of statistics courses, let's say on YouTube, or a lot of books are there, a lot of online resources are there. But let's say if your dream is to join some MBA college or MBA program, then having basic statistics understanding is really important in today's world. Okay. Yeah. Anything else at all? If you want to share any, let's say, your journey through the course, or because a lot of times what people do is that while learning from an NPTEL course, or any course, they try to look for some applications around that course, and then try to build a sort of an understanding on top of that, right? So any of you who might have done that, or you know Okay, so yeah, so again, just to summarize, right? I mean, just to summarize, again, thanks to all of you who joined, essentially, and which kind of shows that you're kind of keen in sort of learning, interested, and so on. But at the same time, just to summarize and tell you that, I mean, be it MBA, or let's say be it any area within MBA, right? So I think in the beginning also I mentioned several areas, but keep some focus. So keep some focus on whatever you want to achieve after doing the MBA. All right. So let's say after doing the MBA, if your entire interest is in finance, then there's no point of venturing into, let's say, some marketing applications initially, OBHR applications, etc. Okay. So again, I'll say that having that focus is not easy, but at least let's say, for example, as Bharat mentioned, so he's more interested in consultants, right? So again, try to find out the area of focus that you have, and then try to put forward some elementary steps towards having a solid understanding in that focus area. Okay, so later down the line, once you complete the MBA or at the time of, let's say, graduating from MBA, then that should not happen that, okay, so you're interested in finance, but I did not do anything in finance over the last 2 years. That should not happen. Okay. So try to take as many courses as you can from finance domain. Try to learn from some other resources. Try to do some projects like this. Try to do some internships. As small as a winter internship also helps, right? It need not be a 3 or 4 month summer internship. So any smaller sessions over the winter, or even in between the curriculum, in between the semesters also, a lot of faculty are kind of interested in giving some smaller projects, or problem statements, etc. So try to solve those, try to evolve from those, and so on. Okay, so anything else at all? Yeah, I think I'm done from my side. So probably we can wait for 5 minutes and then we can close it. Yeah, any questions, any points, or okay, so can you share some sources for case studies? Maybe any book or websites? Yeah, so yeah, Bharat, can you send me an email? Can you send me? I think that'll be easier. Okay. I'll just forward you some links and some resources there. Okay. Yeah. Anything else before we close? And especially just to mention, since you said about, let's say, books and all, right? So you have lots of books where when you see titles such as statistics for management, statistics for business people, or statistics for engineering. So all these might be relevant because they don't try to go very deep into theory, and at the same time they try to be a bit more elaborate on the practical aspects of the course also. Okay, so especially any book, any good book on stats for management, or stats for business people, something like these kind of books would be more helpful rather than picking a standard theory book in statistics and so on. Right? Okay, so if not, we can close in 2 minutes. I'll wait for 2 more minutes. Any other things that you might have missed upon, you can share. You can just type that. Okay, so again, just to summarize, don't worry at all about statistics. Because again, a lot of people have trouble in statistics. So I do see that. Right? So a lot of our own students, they come to me saying that they're not very good in statistics or analysis and so on. So don't worry at all. So try to pick up on some basic ideas, like I said. Try to develop, try to work as much as you can, okay, and then try to evolve. Try to see where you're making mistakes, right? And these are some of the ideas that you should focus on rather than the actual theory, model building, etc. All right, so I think we'll close it here if there are no more questions. And again, it was very good to sort of talk to all of you, and then also understand what your perspectives are towards the course and so on. Okay, so I think we'll close it and then see you.
Okay, thank you, sir. We are closing this session. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.